Aloha Shakti. Aloha everyone. We're going to start in a few minutes, just waiting for our guest speaker.
Hey, how's it?
How's it?
Hey. Can you hear me? Is my audio okay?
Your audio sounds good on my end. How about mine?
Very well, very good.
Excellent. Are you Frank?
I'm Frank Kapach, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, lives in Raleigh for the last 35 years.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, both Shakti and I are Puna residents. I live in Leilani.
Yes.
And so this is being recorded. So we're just going to talk stories a little bit, and then I'm going to go right into the actual session.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yes, can I share screen if I need to?
What was that?
Can I share the screen if I need to? Share screen function. My co-host, so I can share screen if need be. I have some resources.
Sure. Why don't I go ahead and see if I could. Okay, I just made you the co-host.
Cool. Cool.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started.
All right.
Since it's being recorded. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Equality High Puna Strong Virtual Resource Fair on April the 8th, 2020. This session today is about EMDR therapy. So over the past 5 years, Puna has suffered 2 volcanic disasters requiring evacuation, 2 hurricanes, a threat of nuclear war, and 2 years of pandemic. So how do we cope with using this EMDR psychotherapy? So the objective here for this session today is how understanding of what is EMDR therapy and how it can help us. So this talk will provide understanding of 4 methods of resourcing that everyone can use and how to access EMDR therapy from professionals in our community. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today, Frank Kapach. Is a licensed social worker, is a veteran clinical social worker, beginning his career in 1975. He is a past clinical faculty for Edinburgh University online MSW program, State University of Pennsylvania. He was also the past director faculty of social work at DeUval College, Buffalo, New York. Is currently a field instructor for the social work program at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, and currently manages a group of private practice on the island of Hawaii, and is a program director for the Green Will Conservancy, the Green Youth and Family nonprofit that hosts trauma training workshops for clinicians in Hawaii. Dr. Kapach has a wide range of clinical and organizational experience and is a certified EMDR therapist consultant institute facilitator. Frank provides a wide range of community and web-based lectures on the subject of trauma as his specialty. So please welcome Mr. Frank Kapach. Welcome.
Thank you. And just a clarification, I'm not Dr. Kapach, I'm a clinical social worker. Thank you. Yeah, wow, trauma. What is trauma? That's really that's an interesting idea, and I'm really opening also to the participants having some feedback and questions as we go along. About some of the concepts that we'll talk about today. But yes, we've all been through a lot, right? unbelievable by most people's standards. And guess what? Everybody's still moving along. I mean, to me, that says an awful lot about us, about our cultural diversity, and about the strengths that we have to resource ourselves through these types of what for most people, when you talk to them about it, seem like unbelievable series of events. Like literally an unbelievable series of events. A little bit about I'll let people in as they come. A little bit about the Greenwell Conservancy. Greenwell has been here in Hawaii about 11 years, I'm thinking now. It's a non-for-profit organization that's dedicated to community education, resourcing, and we do provide demonstration model programs. We invite people to take a look at what we're doing. Everything that we produce online at thegreenwill.org is literally open source. So we're really encouraging people to take anything that they can use. If we can be of an inspiration or a help to everyone, I'm sending you to the text a link to our Greenwell Online Institute. Please feel free to use anything there if it can help what you're doing in the community. And also we're available for consultation and support. We provide a lot of community service gratis. We have some very experienced group members that have been working together for close to 50 years. So we're encouraging you to take advantage of our resource in the community. We also provide treatment groups. We have a model program for teens and elders, which is on the land, and it's also online. And that program right now is built making soil, and we're distributing ulu plants and food. That's what Greenwell is all about. And it's really designed to get information out there on trauma-informed capable care and how to develop programming that supports trauma-informed and capable care. So before I move into trauma, because trauma can trigger a lot of stuff in a lot of people. Trauma is very contagious. Traumatic responses are very contagious. So in order to minimize contagion, we want to make sure that people are adequately resourced. And the first resource we have is time orientation, where we are right now, this moment. Each of us right now, please feel free to either participate with this experiment or not. If you don't want to, please feel free not to participate and turn off your mic. We've been through an extraordinary amount of events in 5 years. And honestly, that's community events. These are environmental events. This doesn't even include interpersonal things that we may have gone through over the last few years. I wonder if we all at this moment know, right now, in our bodies, in our emotions, that it is April 8th, 2022, 10:08 a.m., that this is actually 2022. Some of this stuff started in what, 14, 15, we've been through this last 5 years or so. Do we know right now in our bodies, in our experience, that we're actually here right now, and that the dangers of those events have truly passed? The dangers of those events have truly passed. So just take a moment and just notice your breath. Notice how that beautiful Hawaiian air goes in and out of our breath. That air that has traveled thousands of miles across the most vast ocean in the world, cleansed by the ocean that we're breathing here in Hawaii right now in 2022. April of all months. Here we are in April. I think back to, what was it? Wasn't it May 5th or 6th that the Leilani eruption took off? Remember the roads were starting to crack? Remember that? All of those events have truly passed. Have truly passed. So sit with that for a few moments and just notice your reaction to that. Take a few moments. Notice how it feels sitting where you're sitting. Notice the feeling of your feet as they, in shoes or no shoes, as they touch the ground or the floor. What's that like? What's this moment like? This moment where we have successfully survived all of that, where those dangers have passed. Now, I'm not saying there aren't dangers in the world, of course there are. But we now have experience from those experiences that have passed that prepare us far more effectively for danger than we were when they started. I could go on, actually. I could say, do we know that it's 2022 and the dangers of childhood, and for some of us, even young adulthood, have truly passed? We made it through those dangers. Thank you. May 3rd, 6.9 earthquake. Yeah, I remember that one. Whew, the cars were dancing in the parking lot. Yeah, 2022. And the dangers of childhood and young adulthood have truly passed. Have truly passed. Again, I'm not saying there aren't dangers in the world. Of course there are. But with all of those experiences that we've been through, we have points of references, resources now that we can never lose that prepare us for future events. That's one of the wonderful benefits of going through trauma, and of course, getting through it, surviving it. Questions on this idea of time orientation as a primary resource for addressing and beginning to address trauma? Anybody have questions about that before we move on? Okay, all right. I recognize some folks in the audience. Good, welcome, good to see you. It's reassuring. Again, talking, yeah, we made it through. Now we have resources. Yes, we have, indeed. And then I think of also the next most important resource we have, each other. Oh my goodness, each other. We were there with each other. A place like no other place on the world, where that spirit of aloha and the community from the individuals at risk to the highest levels of governance in our state, everybody was here with us. We gathered, we came together. My goodness. I remember wandering around the first aid sites, wandering around the campsites where people were gathering and jumping in and doing EMDR, right on the spot. And being with those people and the way they were just so open, folks were so open to anything. And people came forward and responded with openness. Human community, resources, our family, our cultures. Wow. Talk about a major resource. One of the struggles we're training with one of our mentors, Dr. Roger Solomon, who some of you in the audience have trained with for many times. He's an international first response professional. He's the director of the EMDR eye movement desensitization and reprocessing Institute, formed by the inventor, the founder, Francine Shapiro. And he's working in Ukraine right now. And when I was talking with him, one of the things that he pointed out that could be a complicating factor for folks in Ukraine right now is that their culture and the culture of the oppressor are one and the same. That is a really complicating factor. That's a complicating factor because it's very hard for our brains to wrap around people that are part of our community who then turn against us as individuals. That's not, or as a whole group. It's very, very difficult because that resource of family and community just doesn't happen to be there at that time. Let's pause for a moment on that idea of resourcing. Any ideas, concepts, other concepts regarding community, family, as I think a second most important resource, maybe even first resource, and maybe time orientation next, How many of you turned to your family when all this stuff was going on? How many families were willing to move you at the last minute? Everything's cleaned up. Our houses were spotless for Madame Pele's inspection, and everybody was ready with their pickup trucks, right? And a moment. Yeah, I remember all those people that brought plastic bins. They bought plastic bins, bright pink ones, at the Home Depot, right? Or Target, right? Target. I remember that. Showing up with their plastic bins. Yeah, collectivist versus individual orientation. Absolutely. It's always a struggle. And there are those that argue that societies that are more communal are more resilient, durable, and flexible. Absolutely. When you have a individual mind, it often wrestles with self-concept in relationship to others. Now, on the other hand, there's strengths for the individualism as well. But again, it's all a resource if we look at it, having differences. The key in differences is getting people to cooperate. Yeah. So, you know, before jumping on here, I've done a little bit of resourcing, and I've done that for a reason. You know, I've done that for a reason, just so when we start talking about what trauma is, we're all a little more resourced, okay? Because these talks can trigger. These talks can trigger. Oh, my, back in the waiting room. That's interesting. Okay, not sure about that. Okay, I got out. Interesting. Okay, I'm coming in on another one. That's kind of interesting. I don't know, must be one of my colleagues. Okay, I have a doppelganger here, a shadow figure. Okay, hope it's transformative. What is trauma? What's that?
It's the multiverse.
It's the multiverse. Oh my God, two of me. My family would give up. They would say enough already. They had to deal with two of me. Oh my goodness. So what is trauma? How do we define it? What is trauma? It's the big thing everyone talks about, trauma-informed care. But functionally, what is trauma in its simplest term? Anybody have any input on that? What is trauma? Okay.
Something that violates our safety.
Yeah, no kidding. Absolutely. That is one factor. Absolutely. Something that violates our safety. Absolutely. I would add to that, violates our safety without adequate resource. Because we can have our safety violated, but when we have enough resource, it doesn't become a traumatic memory. All's well that ends well, as they say. Okay, but when the cavalry comes to rescue, right? Absolutely. There's, I think, another third factor. It is definitely a violating experience where we do not have a sense of power, or power is, you know, affected, where the cavalry doesn't come to rescue, and we are insufficiently resourced. Absolutely. I look at trauma from an information processing model. EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is in some ways a very revolutionary therapeutic concept that stands independently on its own theoretical foundation. And that foundation is the adaptive information processing model. So when I look at trauma, I see trauma as an information processing difficulty. It's the brain and the nervous system is having trouble processing information. It's like indigestion, okay? And the information indigestion, memory indigestion, and that information which the brain and nervous system is having trouble processing is that the events have actually passed. They've actually over. They actually were in the past. Because when that information gets congested, it runs in loops, whether it's in our body somatically, or it runs in loops emotionally, or it runs in loops in terms of actual flashbacks of memory. And it can even run in loops behaviorally. We behaviorally reenact to try to get it out of our system. We like recreate dramatic events unconsciously in order to get it discharged, to discharge the disturbance that's been stored in our memory. So I see this as an information processing challenge. And that information, I believe, is that the primary first piece of information is that the events have actually passed. They're not actually happening right now. And when you think about trauma and how it affects the brain, one of that we're learning a lot, and we're admitting that what we know about the brain is really still in the dark ages, to be honest. So many of the concepts that we talk about, probably in 5 years, we're going to look back and go, really? So I tell people, concepts are useful stairs, bridges, but don't get too attached to them, because we're in a renaissance right now in terms of understanding the brain and the nervous system, and understanding its relationship to who and what we are. Okay. But when I think about the brain, we think of the part of us that steps in to protect ourselves. If we don't have outside, the cavalry's not there, our own mammal nervous system has fabulous set of programs that jump in. Fight or flight, to just talk about two of the primary ones. We can fight or flight. And this happens without thought. And that, we believe, is in the midbrain, the amygdala. We believe it's there. And then the amygdala has this little organ attached to it called the hippocampus. And that thing is really fascinating. Interestingly enough, it thins with trauma. It thins out, gets thinner and thinner and thinner. But when we look at some of what we believe are the functions of that hippocampus, I'm putting it simply, of course, it's a lot like a filing cabinet and a timestamp. It timestamps memories. It says when they happen, okay? And it says when they happen in relationship to other memories, and then it files the memories by categories, what they call valiance, but the valuation, the categories, whether the memories are good or bad, pleasurable, unpleasurable, dangerous, or safe, and when they happen. Now, when that hippocampus thins from repeated trauma, those functions don't work as effectively. The memories lose their timestamp and start to become blurred across time. When people are triggered in the present, they suddenly start experiencing physiologic responses in the amygdala, fight or flight, that aren't related to the current events that are happening. They're way out of context. Yeah, they're out of time context, because the reaction that's coming on board from the amygdala is a reaction to maybe something that happened in a very different time. Okay, so that this idea of a flashback, for example, people are triggered and suddenly they flash back, they literally lose time in terms of their perceptions, their sight, smell, hearing, and they start reliving an event that happened in trauma time, as Francine Shapiro, the inventor of EMDR, would say, events that are trapped in trauma time. And guess what? They go back in time and start living a parallel time experience. And it's just as visceral and just as real as you and I sharing with each other right now over this amazing technology. It's just as real. Smells, sensations, auditory sounds, visual, all of these things can be relived as if they're still happening. When people really have severe post-traumatic disorders, very little can trigger that. It can be dry. I've worked with a fellow who was driving down the highway from Pahoa to Keough, and he had to drive in the middle of the road. And when he explored it, driving his wife crazy, when we explored it, he was avoiding roadside explosives from Afghanistan. Okay, because he couldn't drive on the side of the road. He had to drive in the middle. Okay, all right. He was still in Afghanistan, or at least part of it. Okay. So memory indigestion, you could say, or the inability to process memory information as a information processing difficulty. That's my definition of trauma. How does that sit with all of you? How does that sit? Does that make sense? Is it too simple, too complex?
Sounds right.
All right, so how do we treat it? What do we do? How do we treat it? And what is EMDR psychotherapy, which I personally believe I've been practicing 8 years, okay, maybe 48 years. I've been practicing EMDR about 11, and it has completely transformed everything that I do. It has been a revolution in understanding effective therapy. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it, because it actually works. And there's research to show it works. And there's research to show that simple trauma, and I'm defining that as something, and I don't mean to minimize anyone's experience, because it's not simple, but like a car accident or an assault. It's not simple in the experience. It's very, very disturbing, can be. But it's simple in that it may be a single traumatic event, okay? So a person who has a stable family, back to that resource again, stable background, grew up with stable mom and papa, they were present, and they know in their gut, they know their family's got their back. You know that you got a stable attachment. Your family's got your back. All right. That kind of person has a car accident and has a post-traumatic response. Every time they drive by the same location, they start experiencing sensations, anxiety, breathing difficulties. That kind of person, that trauma can be processed in under 5 sessions. It's unbelievable. Absolutely. If you didn't know what was going on in the brain, you would think it's magic. What is just going on? It's so unbelievably effective for single traumatic incident. Obviously, when we have multiple traumatic incident and we have early developmental trauma, it's not so quick. But I believe, in my opinion, professionally, compared to talk therapy, it's 4 or 5 times faster. Absolutely. So what happens? What is EMDR? And I'm going to play a little clip in a few moments on it. But basically, and I won't repeat what the clip has to say. But basically, it's a way of processing that congested memory and moving it around in the brain to parts of the brain that can adaptively digest it, get it out of where it's stuck, get it out of the gut where it's stuck, okay? And get it to be processed by other aspects of the nervous system that can do that. And the final outcome is a new narrative, a new story. So it's taking it out of that part of the brain that doesn't have a story. It's just experiential. And it's getting it to be able to organize and express itself in the narrative in a way that makes it not only sense for us, but gives us information that allows us to improve our evolutionary gain, improve our adaptive response, right? Which is pretty amazing, actually, if you think about it, and it's done very quickly. It involves the moving of the eyes, just like following my fingers, the moving of the eyes. We notice that in REM sleep or other times when we are very introspective, you'll notice that a person's eyes move at a slight angle, back and forth, just like at a slight angle, right? And so we've learned that by inducing that with a stable assessment and resourcing, that key again, stable assessment and resourcing. Don't do this at home in the bathroom window or the mirror, okay? Don't do this at home, all right? We will stimulate a processing response of the brain and nervous system. And that's done through a very coherent stage psychotherapy that involves pieces of multiple therapies that have evolved over the last couple hundred years, actually, but at least the last 100. So learning to get the eyes to move stimulates this digestive process. And it leads to new perceptions and experiences and new narratives about what happened to us, okay? So I'm gonna share the screen here and I'm going to pull up a little YouTube. Any questions about this idea of trauma being processed through the movement of the eyes? I mean, we can talk about the theories of how it works in the brain. There's a lot of theories. This new video I'm going to show you is a new theory. There's 3 other main theories, but this one is a new theory I had never heard of, and I thought it was kind of interesting about how this works, why this works with trauma. Any questions about this? We use other stimuli too, tapping, rocking, dancing, like the ancients understood, chanting, rocking, making sounds, drumming. The ancients understood this. This isn't a new thing here, okay? Traditional cultures have very similar methods, okay? So any questions about this idea? Moving the eyes? And I'm gonna share the screen here. Okay, share screen. And I want to start this little video. Hopefully it's gonna work here. How about it? There we go.
It's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's being practiced by some 7,000 therapists across the country, and the numbers are growing. It's a combination of traditional talk therapy with something that sounds bizarre. Here's how it works. The therapist rapidly moves his or her fingers or an object like a wand before the patient's eyes for several seconds at a time, while the patient talks about an upsetting image. We can't show you the actual hand movements because therapists are concerned that untrained people improperly mimicking the technique might possibly cause harm. We can give you a pretty good sense of it. This is an actual EMDR session.
Okay.
The therapist who is facing us is about to start.
Okay, just notice that.
The client is dealing with panic attacks. Look at his eyes and watch how they follow the therapist's wand, and how, after he does this for several seconds, he gets very emotional. The procedure is repeated several times in the session, along with more traditional therapy. This eye movement technique was developed by Dr. Francine Shapiro. While on a walk one day, she noticed that when she thought about something disturbing, her eyes moved in a certain way, and then the thought no longer upset her.
Then I started doing it deliberately to see if it would work, and the same thing happened. The thought shifted away, and when I brought it back, it wasn't as disturbing.
If I had seen you that day in park, what would I have noticed about your eyes?
That they were moving very rapidly in the diagonal, just flickering up and down very, very rapidly. So I thought I stumbled upon some mind process that worked with thoughts. And that's what was so fascinating, because I hadn't been doing it deliberately, but I noticed it happening.
Now, translating this into something you could use on other people, you found what? People's eyes couldn't move that way by instinct or naturally?
Right, and I had to start using my hand to guide them to make similar types of eye movements.
Dr. Shapiro isn't sure why eye movements are effective, but believes it's connected to the rapid eye movements, or REM, that occur in the brain during dream sleep. One theory is that REM sleep helps us cope with upsetting incidents, in effect, making life's nightmares more manageable by a process still not understood. A shock to the system, like war or rape, interrupts that natural process and keeps us from coping.
When a trauma occurs, that processing mechanism gets disrupted. It doesn't work. The brain goes into shock, and the mind just repeats the information over and over again. When we deal with the eye movement in the office, we seem to be able to open up that block processing and accelerate it.
All right. Cool. Thoughts, comments, please. Got some music coming in. That's kind of nice. How did that happen?
It might sound counterintuitive.
Oh, sorry about that.
But can nightmares?
Sorry
help
about that.
heal from trauma?
Interesting. It's still going on.
Tries
Hold
to
on.
evolve traumatic experience to certain sleep.
Okay, one
So when
moment.
we wake up from a nightmare, that process gets disrupted.
All right, there we go. That's me. Okay, got it. All right. So, rapid movement, eye movement, stimulating the processing in the brain. How do we use this? And maybe before I move ahead, I'll talk about a couple other resources. Understanding the whole psychoeducation about trauma, understanding that it's not craziness, that it's not some horrible thing that's happening to me because I'm being punished, that it's not a quote mental illness, that I'm going crazy, literally. I mean, people will come in thinking they're losing their mind, and that there's something in their character that's deficits. None of those things. So understanding the nature of it is also a resource. Square breathing, we use square breathing techniques. Greenwell runs an adult group on Fridays at 4, and the community is welcome to become part of that. Anyone interested, I'm going to put some contact numbers out there, and we do many of these sorts of things. I'm going to see if I can put some Greenwell information out there for you folks. Also, here's some information. If this particular talk triggers anybody, you know how to reach me. Also, the crisis number will be there. I think we'll see what else is there. Okay, yeah, there's crisis, there's Greenwell's office, and there's my cell phone, I believe. I got my cell on there. I want to make sure you folks have that. No, here it is. I'll make sure that people can get hold of me, because this stuff can trigger in some people. And let's see. Okay, and there's my, I think, let's see if that went through too, hopefully. Okay, very good. All right. So we use square breathing. We, like I said, we have our phase. EMDR is phased, so that, you know, there's early phases and later phases. But we have a phase 1 and 2 group that's run on Fridays at 4. Greenwell is able to, again, bill everybody's medical insurance. We're an actual outpatient clinic. One of our functions is that. And we do things like teaching this square breathing, breathing in, holding your breath, breathing out, holding your breath, breathing in, holding your breath, learning visualizations, various methods of down regulating. Okay. So breathing is, you know, everyone, there's some wonderful cultural programs called Ha Breath that are amazing. They're designed by indigenous healing practitioners and professionals. They do some really creative and really effective methods. Ha Breath. Look into that, look that up. The breath is everything, as our ancients understood. Breath is everything. We also use measures. One of the things that we've learned is that measuring a disturbance, if we measure our internal level of disturbance, the very act of measuring it lowers the distress. It actually lowers it. And it lowers it because it removes the catastrophic feeling that, like, if I took a measure of my distress right now, 0 to 10, doing a talk, it's going to be high, maybe 4, 4.5. But by measuring it, I've just lowered it to just about above a 3. It contains it because it's 0 to 3 or 0 to 4, no higher than 10. It's not 0 to a black hole in space. A catastrophic loss of my sense of control where I'm overwhelmed by disturbance. It puts containment on it. So the regular practice of it also re-strengthens that hippocampal volume. And I have an article here for you folks I'm going to put up here. It's called Correlates. This is a really interesting article. I'm going to put it in there if I can record it. It's in our Greenville Conservancy professional community. We have an amazing library there of some of the world's best, most recent academic articles on trauma and the cutting edge areas of trauma care. That library is available to the entire community. This is all open source. It's in our professional community section of the Online Web Institute. But this article actually shows the changes in the brain, okay? Actually shows sessions and how the brain redistributes information physiologically, mechanically through a session. One of the things we've learned from this is that in as few as 15 EMDR sessions, we can increase hippocampal volume by a significant percentage. That's revolutionary. The fact that we're beginning to see that any psychotherapy can have a physiologic remediation in the brain is breakthrough. That study is being replicated on a large scale in Rome now on using CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and EMDR and other therapies to see if all therapies do that. Okay, and under what conditions? But that is revolutionary, that a psychotherapy can remediate a brain mechanical loss, a change. So measuring our level of disturbance and measuring our capacity to, thank you. Okay, very cool. Measuring our own sense of our capacity. How much right now do I believe? What's my belief that I can lower that disturbance from a little over a 3 with a few moments of square breathing? It's pretty high right now. I bet it's a 6 on a 7-point scale. So if I just breathe and pause and breathe and pause and breathe again, I can feel my parasympathetic downregulation. It's happening as I do it. So my belief is pretty high, and I'm measuring my belief. So constantly learning to measure one's own belief in their capacity and also measuring their levels of distress on a scale, we use 0 to 10, the pain scale, actually thickens and develops a new relationship between that hippocampus and that amygdala, the time stamping, and add that to time orientation. Here's where I am right now. Noticing details of what it's like to be here right now, how it feels sitting in my seat, feet on the floor, looking out the window. That scene in my background is the scene I'm looking out at. That gets me here right now. So those methods will literally relink the hippocampal amygdala relationship. So those are the things that we'll do in resourcing group, and we do that in therapy as well. There is also in the Institute, there's a large video library that we've created on EMDR, how it works and that sort of thing. Other questions on the mechanics of treating trauma? Is this clear? Is this too academic, or is it useful? I guess that's the main thing. Is this a useful set of a series of information for you folks? Many of you may already know a lot of this, but is this useful? Okay. Culture. What about culture? Yes, please.
Very informative, and I'll probably take some time to process some of the possible applications.
Yeah, very cool. Well, let's talk about applications a little bit. That's a great suggestion. Then I'll get to EMDR and cross-cultural application. First off, maybe I'll start with that. One of the reasons I prefer EMDR is there's not a lot of talk involved in it. It doesn't have to be any talk. I have treated EMDR patients teenagers, Micronesian teenagers who knew 2 or 3 words of English, and their caregivers maybe had 5. But with drawing the trauma, and processing the eye movements, we were able to treat what happened to them. So it doesn't require words. Matter of fact, you don't have to use any words whatsoever. You just have to be able to maybe measure whether it's disturbing or undisturbing. You can do high gestures. It's gone up or it's going down. That's it. That's it. Okay. So it crosses cultures and it can be integrated into methods that are culturally congruent. For example, tapping a gourd, rocking, chanting, tapping a gourd, repeating a chant. Okay, we'll do the same thing. What we've learned is the eye movement is just the most potent. Research shows that. Large meta-analysis shows that all types of stimuli thrown in there, the eye movement is still the most potent. But you don't need the most potent medicine always to heal everybody. The most potent dosage is not always needed. Matter of fact, it's rarely needed, the most potent dosage. Okay, so, it can be integrated into dance, into movement. I've danced with elders, we've just danced. Okay, and that's all we had to do, just kind of waltz around a room. Okay, so it can be included and integrated into all kinds of different aspects of delivery. And in that way, I think it is one of the most culturally fluent therapies that I've seen so far. Certainly, if I was to compare it to cognitive behavioral therapy, where everything's theoretical and from the brain top down, no, that's not going to fit. This is a therapy that goes in the middle and can go down into the somatic, to the emotional, or it can go into the cognitive and the thinking. It goes right in the middle, right in the gut, starts right there. And I think that fits, in my experience, that fits. How do we implement it? We implement it in individual, families, groups. Okay, it can be done in group. If you have a group of people who have shared the same trauma, any one person, how do you go about finding the right methods? Well, know your client, know who you're working with, base it on what's relevant for them, adapt it to what's relevant for them. Don't force them into your paradigm. You don't have to. Stay with their paradigm. Okay. Blend it right into what they do. Okay. We use it in group, in first response. And this is the group protocol, which the research was what we found in researching first responders to incidents, first responders to a car accident, to a fire, and so on. They all shared the same imagery. Now, it may have been from a different vantage point. One person might have these smells they can't get out of their sense of smell, or they have this heat they feel on a part of their body. They can't stop that heat, or someone else keeps having the sound of someone's voice screaming in their ears, or someone else can't stop thinking about what they should have done. All right, they all have a different traumatic load. Their brain has loaded the information uniquely to their nervous system. But guess what happens when one member of that team processes the MDR? They all process it vicariously. They all have the same processing take place. One representative person is the representative, and they do the eye movement, and guess what happens? It all comes down. So there's a generalizing a vicarious effect when working in groups. Again, you also have to make sure that you know your group and that the group is adequately resourced before you start doing this. Okay, everybody's got to be adequately resourced. Okay, so it can be used in groups. We use the phase 1 and 2 in groups on our Friday resource group at 4, but we also do it in families through Greenwald. Some of we work with teens and families. So we bring this into a family. And one of the unique things about it is we choose never ever to process the family problem. The person that's identified as the problem, don't do it. We process everyone's reaction to that problem. We take the scapegoat out of the heat and we process everybody else's reaction. It's really quite amazing to see what happens to families when you get to the root. You get to the root of the issue, like Ho'oponopono, go right to the problem, not this, right to the solution. Go to the solution. Quite amazing what happens. Quite amazing to see it. Really quite amazing. So we do it in families as well. So it can be done in individuals, can be done in groups. It can be done technically. I mean, we do it in if the group is adequately resourced, you can do larger groups. But you have to make sure you've got follow up, and you have to be able to screen for those people who are carrying a load of really complex trauma from very early in their life. You have to be able to screen for people who were terrorized in childhood by the people who should have protected them. Those folks will carry a lifelong level of vulnerability to disturbance and vulnerability to looking at their own memory that has to be assessed for, and that's very important. Those kind of folks need a longer form of therapy, and they need EMDR integrated with another type of therapy used at the same time. You can't go like this with them. That's too much, and they'll relive, they'll reenact what happened to them. So you have to be able to assess that. Okay, comments, questions? Some good questions here. Good questions. Good questions.
Everyone, feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions.
It's a good time to we'll bring it towards the end. I'm going to also put our link here to some of our other YouTubes that are on there. We have about 30, I believe, YouTube videos we've created. There's another link right there. And everything from a cartoon that we create, a stupid little silly cartoon, and how it works, to various levels of training. It's geared for training professionals, health and healing professionals, but we also use it with the general public, some of these films. Okay.
So Frank, if someone was interested, say, I know Puna has a lot of different healers, and many of the healers are always open to learning new modalities to add to their bag of healing tools. Can you let us know what a healer would do to be introduced to that kind of training?
Okay, we would encourage lay healers to learn phase 1 and 2, learn how to resource, absolutely, and how to handle critical incident, phase 1 and 2, how to stabilize, get people present, how to get people to get time oriented, and stabilization, absolutely. And we will teach, we'll run programs for folks in the community on doing stabilization techniques. The Institute now is opening a new function, and that is, we do train EMDR psychotherapy for people who hold a minimum of a master's degree in a relevant mental health field. We've trained 125 clinicians on this island with the #1 people in the world. And we've written grants and raised money and lowered the cost of these trainings to make them affordable to our community. And in the last year, we've trained clinicians from Lanai, Oahu, Molokai, Maui, and the Big Island. So, we do training, and we are available for training. We're available for clinical residencies and internships for people who are coming into their internships. We're ongoing. The Greenwell program was created by interns. That it was absolutely created by interns and volunteers. I have someone says I work with families living with Alzheimer's and other dementia. Caregivers often experience a huge amount of stress. Do you fill this space? There's a space for this kind of treatment for therapy and caregivers. Absolutely. My first 10 years in the field way back when was in Alzheimer's clinics. I was a psychobehavioral mental health professional for, I think we had 40 nursing homes and acute, subacute facilities in New York State. I absolutely, I believe, and I believe that, and I've done EMDR at the bedside with people with chronic illness with the family members, okay? Because the family is the nervous system, the stable nervous system for an individual. And when an individual's nervous system breaks down, they rely more and more on their family's nervous system to compensate. Therefore, the healthier the caregivers, the better outcome you get for the so-called identified patient, okay? So what we'll do often is process what a family's going through individually or with the client, depending upon whether we feel it will be productive or not, okay? And one of the things we used 2 years ago, we worked 1 year in Yukio. Before COVID hit, we worked a year there, and there we used binaural music, which is all based on EMDR research. And we used the binaural music in every session, in our holding hands, and we would tap slowly with the fingers on the hand. When clients were reminiscing or reliving their experience, we would just do dual attention tapping, just like that, at the right pace, with the binaural music. Absolutely, this can work, and we saw it work in Yukio in the year we worked there, and we gathered research data on that. Technically, we have a lot of data on that. Yes, essential workers could use some group EMDR therapy. Absolutely, as part of debrief. Absolutely. We would, anytime there's a critical incident or a community has a critical incident, contact us, because we can work with the responders and we can work with identified clientele. Right now we have 6 licensed mental health professionals with our organization right now. And we've trained many that are now licensed in the community. We've trained the community practitioners throughout the island and islands. Yeah, other on the theme of utilization. And again, Greenwell is available, as I said, for a wide range of organizational consultation in terms of helping organizations develop. We were 14 years ago when we were visualizing Greenwell. 14 years ago when we were visualizing Greenwell, before we formed, we took our position papers, our articles, we took all of our concepts and distributed them to every green organization we could find in Puna. So we distributed it out to everybody. We met with for 1 year, we did a community engagement and for feedback as we developed our concept. That was about 12 years ago, I'm thinking. And so we're very open to any way we can support green-oriented organizations. We believe EMDR is a green psychotherapy. It's a therapy that doesn't require pharmaceuticals. And it can work with that, but it is it uses the body's own natural methods. Okay, how we doing? We got about 8 minutes left. We're beginning to wind down. Is everybody stable? Everybody present? Is anybody beyond their window of tolerance?
We have a few more minutes, and before I forget, I wanted to compliment you on your yard. I am assuming that's your yard.
That is.
Once upon a time, my yard looked pretty like that, but if you live in the jungle of Leilani Estates, your yard doesn't look like that anymore.
Well, this is not a Valley farm lots, but I get it. We lost a lot of soil. That's one of the reasons why we are very honored that the Hawaii Community Foundation gave us $20,000 for soil grant. Now we are making soil, and we got equipment. We got people to sponsor. We now have a small little excavating company that we're making available to other folks in Puna Strong who have small organizations, need help bringing in soil or cinder. We have a dump trailer available to bring cinder, soil. We have a small machine to help prepare sites for folks that want to start gardens. Okay, so get hold of us. We have a little green thumb mini excavating company that we're going to take around to help everybody with their gardening, their green stuff. We've got a chipper like you wouldn't believe. We can chip stuff to make more soil. So, and our teens are involved in all this. They're all learning to run the high lift, which is really neat. And our elders, by the way, we have elders around that machine 2 weeks ago learning how to dig with a little high lift. So anyways, our programs are on Sundays with the teens and the elders. They're online from noon on and once a month on the land, but they'll increasingly be on the land and increasingly going to different elders' homes to plant ulu and other food trees. So ulus are a thing. Ulu is our #1 thing. It's about getting ulu out there, getting it cloned, developed, getting soil built, and get ulu, get food trees out to our community. So any questions, go to thegreenwell.org and check us out. If we can be available for anything, don't hesitate to get hold of me. Everything we do, this is our legacy project. It's all basically charitable. We have a private practice group as well, and that helps make some of the money, so we're able to do a lot of this stuff. So let us know, okay? And if you want to learn about EMDR, do a master's internship. We work with many universities. Our senior clinicians have close to 50 years in the field, and so we have a wealth of wisdom to give away. And so we're at that age in life when you start getting 70 plus, it's time to start. You got to give back, because that's the only thing that really feels like it will last, because our life is very short. Not to leave on a low note, but life is precious and it doesn't last forever. So.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it looks like I want to thank Isabel for stating that if anyone has any questions, that they can check out your vendor booth here at the Puna
Yes.
Strong Virtual
Thank
Resource
you,
Fair.
Isabel. I call Isabel IQ. That's my nickname for Isabel. IQ. Oh my goodness. You rarely see bright lights like that. Oh my goodness. Right. And I see Laura, who has been a very instrumental part of supporting the growth of Greenwall. Laura's put a lot of support into Greenwall, and her legacy is felt. I want her to know that it's felt. Yeah. Any
Fantastic.
other comments, questions? We got 5 minutes. We're wrapping up. We're winding down. We're all doing okay.
Good. Well, I appreciate all the discussions and the questions that everyone's provided during this great session. So we're just going to hang out for a few more minutes for any questions, and then I'll probably end this session in a few minutes. So if anyone
breathe, notice our breath, breathe. This wonderful Hawaiian air. Clean air is hard to find on the planet.
I have to go. Thank you so much.
Wonderful seeing you, Laura. Aloha.
And then Frank, I wanted to compliment you on your Star Child pendant as well.
Oh, that's Gabriel Mark Holt. He's a local artist. This is beadwork. He's amazing. Gabriel. He's also quite a healer. He's quite a Lomi practitioner. He's a young man. He's early, I say 34 maybe. But Gabriel's work, many people probably recognize his work here in our community, but he's really something. He visualizes these geometric forms, and he puts all this together through beadwork. I'm trying to pull up his contact right now, because I think there's interesting talking story. He's really something. He's one of our bright young Puna lights. He really is. He's something about him. Gabriel Mark Holt. I'll put his number. If anybody's interested in looking at his work, contact him. Tell him I sent him. Also, they're looking for really good, not just advertising. I mean, it would overwhelm me, but he's quite a healer. He's got it. And I referred a lot of clients in terminal condition to him. He's been amazing. Carried them through end of life with body healing. He's a young man. You don't expect it in the. I mean, my age is showing here, but you don't expect it in those that are that young. But no, he's got something. And every piece is different. What he does is really something. And he's willing to teach you, but nobody can hold the form, the mathematical form in their mind while they're doing it. And he doesn't follow an outside pattern.
I have one of those pieces. I'm really happy to have one.
Gabriel's work. Yeah, I collect early Gabriels. Yeah, he's something. Wonderful, everyone. Greenwell really appreciates, on behalf of our group and our board and all of our folks, we appreciate the opportunity to say aloha to our community. We've been so busy working and doing the work, we don't know a lot of people. People seem to know us, but we just haven't had time to do a lot of social over the last 30 years. So goodwill to all of you, and continue in your good healing work.
All right. Well, thank you again, Frank. And we're just gonna log off here, and we really appreciate your time. And I hope that people will take advantage of this opportunity in learning to heal more through these seminars that you folks provide and training that you provide.
Yeah, join our Friday resource group. Call me, and we'll come into our Friday 4 o'clock group. It's growing and it's very cool. Some interesting people in there, therapists, lots of people. Cool. You're gonna close up when the time's done, right?
I'm gonna close up right now. It's 11 o'clock, so everyone can session. Thank you again, everyone, for your time. Be well and have an Aloha Friday.
Okay.